Conclusion.
ಇದು ಕೆಳಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡಿ.
ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸರಿ, ಅದು ಸಣ್ಣ
ಇದು before. Yeah, back to the program. Okay, so we all live by a blended existence. The formal education, economy, and industry is dominated by Western knowledge system. Now, what we are questioning is, what is IKS, and is it possible to put more IKS components into our existing lifestyle? As it is clear that we are now facing more negative issues with overload of Western knowledge system. One thing I can give you is, there is so much of cultural turbulence in families, because the younger generation and the previous generation have conflict over social values. You will see now a lot of college going students coming with torn jeans, torn tops, all that, both girls and boys. So this is, that's okay in the West. Whether it's okay here, so this is how new components of some knowledge system create turbulence and reactions in existing knowledge system. It's not necessary it is always bad. Even when something is good, knowledge system will always object, because knowledge system has inertia basically. Okay. For example, there are a lot of negative things about the Western knowledge system. One negative thing that we can anticipate is, in another 10 to 12 years, very likely about 15 to 20 million people in India will die because of overdose and wrong use of antibiotics in India. Already super bugs are there in many hospitals. That's why you will see occasionally a news that the doctor in the hospital died out of infection, because the doctor deals with many patients. In few cases, doctors themselves have got infected with a super bug which no antibiotic can cure. This will be worse than COVID case in about 10 to 12 years, mainly because of bad use of antibiotics in India. No other country in the world prescribes so much antibiotics. Okay. People want immediate relief by tomorrow, so they take strong antibiotics. This is what is happening, and we are heading. So there are a lot of negative things about a knowledge system. For some time we tolerate. After that, it becomes intolerable. What is the dream? To live by significant components of Indian knowledge system only. Now, is it possible? Is it meaningful? Or is it productive? That's the kind of questions we need to ask and raise. So we'll see what is Western knowledge system, and little of the Arab knowledge system also, because it has come from the West. This is something evolved over 3,000 years. Okay. In the socio-cultural geography of the Greece, Rome, and Middle East, starting with the so-called Fertile Crescent. All factors have played significant role in shaping this, and even now it is being shaped, not that it has stopped. What is common with all of them is, there is one book that is sacred. They are monotheists, which does not include female and child gods. Its main character is belief in redemption at death, and the moral compass grounded in belief in only one God, which is a male, and in one book, so-called the Abrahamic knowledge system. Jews have one book, Christians have one book, Muslims have one book, one holy book by which they follow. It has also been institutionalized very early. For example, 230 odd AD, the Vatican started, which today for last 2000 years is the authority. Similarly, the Muslims and Jews have their own authority. Rebelling or questioning of the tenets is not permitted and results in excommunication or death. Please don't do minor talking in the behind. Please. Please don't do back channel talking, please. Tenets in these are very harsh, cruel, and acquiring in nature. So you can see this all the time they want to grab something. Okay. That is because the geography there is very dry, desert, doesn't have proper vegetation, doesn't have proper water. So very harsh environment has also led to very harsh tenets, and whatever is good is being acquired. There is nothing like sharing. For example, no heaven for non-followers, eye for an eye, death to all non-believers. This is typically what the tenets say. What about the Indian knowledge system? This is something that is evolved over 5,000 years. Are there older knowledge systems? Yes, they were. We don't know. But currently, the oldest knowledge system still in practice is what you see here. Okay. In the socio-cultural geography of Bharat, that is Indian as it's called, all factors have played significant role. There is no one book that is sacred. You have multiple books. It is polytheist, including female and child gods, and it's highly non-individualistic. There is no one person. That's why Rama fights with Krishna, Krishna fights with Shiva, and all three fight with somebody else. And their followers also fight with each other. Okay. Of course, its main character is belief in rebirth and the moral compass grounded. So the moral compass is grounded in simple terms like dharma and karma. It has either not been institutionalized or has multiple institutions along different philosophies, thus multiple parallel authority. If you don't like one, move to the other. Each can suit oneself or move to other or even disown. India has one of the world's largest population of atheists. We even had a philosophy called Charvaka, which is 2,500 years old. And they were what one today calls the extreme form of existentialism. Okay, what you call existential philosophy today, the extreme form of it was found 2,500. So if you don't like, you will find something else. If you don't like anything, you can be different. You can be an atheist. You don't have to subscribe to any philosophy. You can live by yourself. Rebelling or questioning is permitted and very frequent. That's why you have multiple philosophies and knowledge systems. Even within the mainstream, 100 divisions are there. When you say the Hindu society is divided, not at all surprising. There are hundreds of parallel streams of life. Okay. Tenets in these are very gentle, bountiful, and giving in nature, because Indian subcontinent was fertile, rich, luxurious vegetation, providing for everybody. There was nothing like accumulating and storing, because everything was bountiful available. Okay. Some dramatic conflicts in and with the knowledge system. For example, all of you have heard of Galileo Galilei. He was born in 1564 in Pisa and died in 1642 in a place called Head-CEDT in Italy. In 1632, he proposed what is called the dialogue concerning two chief world systems. One was what he discovered, the other was what was there in the Vatican. And that time Pope Urban VIII was the Vatican head. What he proposed was a heliocentric view. After all, he was an astronomer. He was saying, he said, sun is the center of Earth. Sun is the center of the solar system. Earth revolves around it. That was the heliocentric view. It was opposed by church and treated as anti-Christian, and he was under house arrest from the time he proposed it till he died. And today everybody knows that sun is the center of solar system and earth revolves, whereas Bible says sun revolves around earth. So this is typically what similar thing happened. When Big Bang happened, similar thing, Vatican organized a seminar on November 22nd, 2001. And the conclusion was that they asked, how did the universe form, the solar system form, or the Milky Way galaxy? The scientists told that it was Big Bang which created. Then they said, what was before Big Bang? They said, we don't know. Then they said, thank you very much. You have done very well. They said Bible says God created Big Bang. So before Big Bang, God was there. That's the way things go. So we have to be very cautious. Knowledge system can be very rigid, like what happened with Galileo, and very subjective, depending on who the head of the organization is, what he feels or what he understands, what he thinks is right, is forced on others. What is the main reason for decline of the Indian knowledge system? While Indian knowledge system was suppressed by the Arabic knowledge system, since they suppressed, they did not completely remove it, but suppressed it, since they lacked total control over the geography and polity from the period 12th century till 18th century. It was still vibrant in many local geographies that held on to much of the Indian knowledge system. Examples bound in much of South India. Is this the reason why South India is better socially, economically, culturally, industrially than North India? Is it that because we could preserve it much more authentic than what happened in North India? The real damage to Indian knowledge system came from the following. The British colonial rule from 1825. Just see what happened. This is Macaulay, who is responsible for the university education where all of you have studied. Okay. So this is his statement in the British Parliament on 2nd February 1835. He said, I have traveled across the length and breadth of India and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. This is Macaulay, who created the modern university education system now. Okay. So he says we can't attempt to educate everybody. We must first find interpreters who we govern, a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste and opinions and mass. This is how the Indian Civil Service was created, which has now looked at Indian Administrative Service, followed by KPSC, all that. Okay. And he says, I have no knowledge of either or Sanskrit, but English is far superior to Sanskrit. What a stupid fellow he is. Okay. Neither Sanskrit nor Arabic poetry matched that of Europe. In other branches of learning, the disparity was even greater. Okay. This is what, see how they controlled us. Royal Simla. No dogs are Indians. They treated us worse than dogs. So what does the knowledge system do? Look at this. We have a knowledge system. Knowledge system predominantly has 4 components. A component that gives identity to the people. A component which represents culture among the people. A economic value for both identity and culture. And because of this interaction, wisdom is received. Slowly, bad things are removed, good things are built up, so on and so forth. Okay. So this is the knowledge system, which is nothing to do with Indian knowledge. It is generic knowledge system. Knowledge system has identity, a culture, a perceived, received, accumulated wisdom, and an economic value. Without economic value, people cannot live. Okay. Specifically, the Indian knowledge system has this. In Indian knowledge system, it recognizes tremendous amount of diversity and forms of culture. India is the most cultured nation on earth, because what you find in one country like India, you will have to see more than 70 countries in Europe. If you put it together also, you will not get the kind of culture you have, both diversity and culture. It's part of the Indian knowledge system. Whereas the Western knowledge system, the Arabic knowledge system does not recognize diversity. It imposes monoculture. That's why if you go to America, you will see almost girls and boys looking alike because both wear pant and shirt, pant and t-shirt. Food in all the 50 states, food is common. Whereas here, if you go to our neighbor's house, food is different. Okay, tremendous amount of diversity, predominantly oral and written traditions. If you look at our knowledge system, 90% of it came through oral traditions. Even now, reciting sacred texts and books is part of the training, because writing is very new. I'll come to that in the next session when we look at multilingualism. We say writing is a very new thing that has happened in humanity. Okay. Utilitarian and welfare aspects. People live with you. For example, now even in politics, everybody say we'll give that free, this free, only because they need to show or value the welfare of people, and people's welfare predominantly is utilitarian. Why do we take an auto rickshaw? Because it's convenient. We have to wait for bus is crowded, it need not go to the place where we want, all these issues, right? So humanity is highly conscious of utilitarian values. Diversity, oral and written traditions, utilitarian aspect, reinforce and reflect core and related values of dharma. That's why somebody goes wrong, we say don't behave adharmically. So there is a dharma of conduct for people to collectively live. How you live inside your house is your business. How you live outside is different. You can sit with the legs up at home, but you can't do that when you come to class or to office. Similarly, you can be half dressed at home. You can't come like that to the college or public space. So these are the dharmic issues. So many things. Don't cheat, don't lie, which is common in all knowledge systems and goes further. Okay. So if you really want very good, for example, all knowledge systems today, including the Indian knowledge system, is unsustainable. The Western knowledge system and the Arabic knowledge system is more unsustainable. If you want an exceedingly sustainable knowledge system, you can go see it in Brazil, in the rainforest. For example, there is a rainforest. There is a community where about 100 people live. You see, there are no houses. They just have thatched roof, common space for all 100. All children live here. Only when it rains or it is very sunny, they go and live under the. There is one house for 100. Very sustainable. No steel, no cement, no material, no plastic. Everything is from the forest. Do we have such things all over the world? Yes, we have. Even in Andamans. There is one island in the North Sentinel Island in Andaman's group of islands, which is banned. Nobody can enter there. And you can see people living there. They're still using bows and arrows. And of course, one American missionary was killed when he was trying to convert them to Christianity. The problem is not with Christianity. The problem was his illegal attempt to contact could have wiped out the entire tribe, because these people have no immunity against flu, typhoid, cholera, all this. They have lived in isolation for over 40,000 years. This is in 2001 during the tsunami period when an aeroplane went to check what happened. Some tribal there came to shoot the aeroplane with a bow and arrow. They have lived like this. Even now they live. I have met a few of the tribals, not these tribals, not the North Sentinel, Andaman tribals, other Andaman and Nicobar tribals. They came from Africa much earlier than us. They are pre-Dravidian. They are originally the first, the second wave of people who shifted out of Africa. Okay, and these people are closely related to the Australian Aborigines. They all have similar DNA traits. Okay, that's why anthropology is one of the most interesting subject today, because now that you can analyze anybody's DNA, lot of interesting things have come. For example, 1/4 of 1%, that is 0.25% of all the population in the world contain the genes of Genghis Khan. You can see how notorious he was. 1/4% of the world population contains genes of Genghis Khan. We know that now. Okay, so lot of interesting things are emerging now. And social anthropology through DNA analysis is an amazing subject. So conclusion, Indian knowledge system is important and has many useful aspects, have neither been given its due nor evaluated effectively in the context of our lives. Please don't talk in the middle. I will give time for questions. We have time for discussion for 15 minutes after this. For example, all of you see your BBA, BCom, BBM and MBA students girls wearing pant and suit. They are wearing that when the temperature is 42 degrees centigrade and it is so hot. Many of girls I know, they have fainted because it is too hot, it is very suffocating. But because it is an MBA education, they have to wear shoe, pant and suit. Girls also. Girls and boys look alike. Okay. We never did that. We always wore cotton or wool, which is natural fiber and very compatible with the climatic conditions of us. So there are a lot of Indian knowledge components which we have either not used or neglected because it was suppressed and destroyed. Indian knowledge system has to contend and compete with other knowledge systems, many of which are coercive, like I said about forcing people to wear suit and boot in 40 degrees centigrade with 90% humidity in Bangalore. Only a mad person will ask people to wear that. And most of the university vice chancellors are mad people. You can't do anything. Okay. They are coercive and are very seductive. For example, all youngsters are addicted to fast food, internet, jeans and t-shirt. In hostel, if you don't have jeans and t-shirt, it is very difficult for you to survive because jeans means you don't have to wash for one semester. When you go home for vacation, your mother will wash it. Okay. T-shirt is very easy. Remove, wash and use. So today, when we want to make more meaningful life, it has to contend with so many. For example, today without mobile phone, nobody survives. And mobile phone is one of the most destructive thing that has been done. Okay. Modern mathematics, technology and life science, particularly biology and pharma, now rule the roost all over the world. Almost 99% of the world population depend on modern technology and life sciences. So it is so penetrative. I'm not saying it is bad. What I'm only saying is, please take only what is good. You look at the medical system now. Even if you go for a cough and cold, they will say, get a CT scan. 40 years back, even now in good Ayurvedic system, they will check your nadi and tell you what is wrong with you. So we have lost that skill slowly. And today for everything, technology is used, whether it is necessary or not. The question is how, where, when, and how much of Indian knowledge system to be positioned in the what is called the gamut of life. After all, we have to live every day, we have to buy, we have to sell, we have to travel, we have to teach, we have to learn, we have to work, we have to take care of elderly, we have to take care of ourselves when we fall sick. So many issues are there in. So, how much of Indian knowledge system can you incorporate? Okay. So the first presentation is over. Now there is time to we will have about 15 minutes of question and discussion. Then I will go to the next presentation on multilingual. So on this presentation, if you have any discussion, questions, comments, one gentleman asked for oil economy. I will share that. I can talk in English, Kannada, and Hindi. If you want only answer in Kannada, I will give, but that answer I will also give in English because there are a lot of non-Kannada participants, and I don't want anybody to miss out anything. So feel free to unmute and ask questions on this topic, what we have discussed so far. Yeah, any questions somebody asked on oil economy? Unmute and ask. ಯಾರೋ ಆಯಿಲ್ ಎಕಾನಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ. No questions from anyone? Another 2-3 minutes, then I'll go to the next presentation on multilingualism. Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is on multilingualism. Okay, we will look at What is this idea of multilingualism? Briefly, we related to it in terms of diversity. We will look at it in greater detail now. So the talk will be part of Indian knowledge system, multilingualism. What is multilingualism? What is significant about multilingualism? Connection between knowledge, script, and linguistics. Significance of multilingualism in Indian knowledge system. Limitations on monolingual. Advantage of multilingualism. Latest proof of mental health related to multilingualism. And social cohesion due to multilingualism. We'll look at all these. In fact, one of the reasons why we have very low number of dementia people in the country is because we are multilingual. And one of the reasons why we are very cohesive across 22 states with 22 different languages is because we are multilingual. We'll come to that. So what is multilingualism? Is the use of more than one language by an individual or group of speakers. Even today, occasionally I slipped into when I talked to somebody who raised a doubt on Kannada. I am speaking in English. I can speak in Hindi too. I can understand Marathi, Malayalam, Telugu, Malayalam, little bit. I can follow a little bit of Bengali too. I can follow most of Hindi. I can follow a little of German. So we are trained like this. Most likely your neighbor has a mother tongue which is different from you. So when you have to interact with your neighbor, slowly or surely you will pick up their language and they in turn will pick up your language. Now look at all the shops. I live in Mysore. I'm sure similar phenomena is there. Look at all the shops, small kirana shops. Majority are either from Kerala or from Rajasthan and they speak excellent Kannada. They picked it up simply by transacting. So trade and commerce has brought in tremendous amount of richness, not just in money, in culture too. Roughly 40% of the world population use more than one language. However, less than 10% are actually comfortable with more than one language in reading, writing, and speaking reasonably well. Just a few like a literacy movement. If you know how to sign, you are a literate. Not like that. Reasonably well. And specifically, India has one of the largest population in the world who speak more than one language. We are a nation of polyglots. Polyglot means a person who can speak more than one language. And we are a nation of polyglots. Not only we speak multiple languages, we also speak a lot. For example, even now, many houses don't have toilets, but all of them have one or two mobiles. Okay. So the mobile penetration and the growth rate of mobile in the world, highest is India, 25%. That is because we talk a lot. Why do we talk a lot? Our culture has been one like that. Plus, constantly we have had interaction with outsiders. We have had lot of movement across the subcontinent. We have been very, very patient and very good hosts for multiple cultures and diversity. For example, in Kerala, 2,500 years back, Romans would come, Greeks would come, Arabs would come, Syrians would come, Chinese would come, Malaysians would come. Very common. If you go to the coast of Kerala, Kozhikode or Muziris port as it's called historically, then you walk in the street, it looks like a multicultural town because everybody from Middle East, West Asia, Eastern Africa, China, Malaysia, Southeast Asia would all converge there. Okay. And obviously, you need people who understand other language. That's exactly the reason why so many languages developed, so many cultures developed, so many attributes of. Now you look at marriages in Kerala. I mean, you will see that marriages are conducted like what Syrian Orthodox Church does, how it is done in Arabia, how it is done in Trivandrum itself. All this, okay. Motivation for multilingual. What is the advantage of knowing more than one language? Look at particularly Karnataka. Karnataka has the largest number of Gnanapith awards in India. We have eight of them. And out of the eight, what is interesting, what are the mother tongues of these people? Out of eight, four of them don't have Kannada as mother tongue. Dara Bendre, Masti Venkatesh Iyengar, Gokak, and Karnad, all of them have non-Kannada mother tongue. Two of them had Tamil, two of them had Marathi, one had Konkani, the third fellow has Tamil. Okay, so 50% are non-Kannada mother tongue people who have got Gnanpith award in Kannada. So multilingualism actually enriches your expression. You can see it the world over. For example, even more interesting. Jagadguru Ram Bhadracharya, he is blind but can speak 22 languages. He is a Sanskrit and Hindi scholar. Even though he is blind, he never used Braille. He is a lifelong chancellor of Jagadguru Ram Bhadracharya Handicapped University at Chitrakuta, which gives UG and PG education for all boys and girls with any of the 4 types of disabilities: hearing, speech, locomotion, and brain. He is author of 80 books, and in 2023 he got the Gnanpith Award. Speak 22 languages. Other interesting things. All of you may have accidentally read or heard, all this you would have done. Since I am in Mysore, I pick some identities in Mysore whom I know or I have met. R.K. Narayan, everybody knows R.K. Narayan. One of the finest writers in English, but his mother tongue was Tamil. I had met him because he was living in Mysore, and his grandson was almost my classmate, 2 years younger to me, but we used to go to his house. Fine person, okay. Similarly, M.N. Srinivas, one of the world's greatest social anthropologists. His mother tongue is Tamil, but his best work is in English. Less said the better about Bhimsen Joshi. The mother tongue is Kannada, but exceedingly popular in Marathi and lived most of his life in Pune. And he has sung in dozens of languages. Not many know, those who are only in science would know. He is the god of statistics. C.R. Rao, native of Ballari, Huvin Hadagli, born there. He died last year at the age of 102. And his mother tongue was Telugu, lived in what is now Karnataka, retired from Calcutta, shifted to America, lived there for 40 years after retirement, did even better work, and finally passed. So, knowing more than one language is not only an asset, is important, it enriches, and it does something interesting. For example, here, Rabindranath Tagore got the Nobel Prize for Literature because his poems were written in English. He didn't write, each translated Bengali poems called Gitanjali to English, because those days Nobel Prize was given only for English literature. There was no Nobel Prize for non-English literature, which was definitely very bad on the Nobel Committee. It's an insult to humanity to give Nobel Prize only to English writing. I'll come to that later. One of the most influential writer of all times is Leo Tolstoy. He even influenced Mahatma Gandhi to become a Sarvodaya philosophy and started his opposition to the British rule in South Africa. He got inspiration from Tolstoy's writing. That's why the first community he lived in South Africa was called Tolstoy Farm. Okay. Tolstoy wrote in Russian. What we got influenced is his works in Russian was translated to English. How should it have been in Russian only? How interesting it would be to read his work in the original language, because it is his original expression. Okay. What is more interesting is this gentleman who waited 40 years to get Nobel Prize. This person is Gabriel Marquez. He wrote in Spanish. 40, 50 years back, people were already telling he should get the Nobel Prize, he should get the Nobel Prize, but Nobel Prize was given to only people who wrote in English. So finally, in late 1993, 94, sometime there, they changed the rule and said Nobel Prize can be given to literature in any language, and within the first 2-3 years, most of the Nobel Prizes were taken by people who did not write in English. One of them is Gabriel Marquez, the others are Germans. Okay. Of course, everybody knows Lata Mangeshkar. Her mother tongue is Konkani, fluent in English, Kannada, Hindi and Marathi, but she has sung songs which are immortal in 18 languages, and she has also sung song total in 42 languages. Amazing, some 18,000 songs. She didn't have track of how many she actually sang, because it definitely crossed 8,000-9,000 easily. Okay. So how is it that these people, we value them? Because of two things. One, because of their intrinsic thinking, their perception, their knowledge system which they perceived, valued, exposed. More than that, we now know them because they are available to us in the language of our choice. It's not necessarily their original language, because I know people, I know people who have read the original in Bengali and they feel that is far better than the English version. I'm sure the same applies to Tolstoy's work. But personally, I know people who had read this Marquez original writing in Spanish before the English translation came. And they said, if you have to give Nobel Prize to his English translation, you have to give 4 Nobel Prizes to his original Spanish work. That's the power of his writing. So multilingualism is not only beneficial, it is advisable, and we should encourage. Multilingualism also leads to multiculturalism. Okay. Why we need to focus on this? We need to focus on this because multilingualism is a critical mechanism to understand, communicate, and transact with others, with other culture, with other knowledge system, to do even trade. For example, if you look at the travels of Marco Polo, he traveled across almost 50 different cultures before he reached the court of Kublai Khan. So it enhances the knowledge system of everyone, when interaction, assimilation, integration of diverse and richer thoughts and experiences and perceptions happen. Life is very rich if thoughts, experiences, and perceptions are enhanced. Why do you want to go and study in Indian Institute of Science? Why do you want to go and why do people in Indian Institute of Science want to go to Harvard and Stanford? It is not because of the campus. Let me tell you, the best campus in the world. I have gone to many campuses, including Stanford, but let me tell you the two best campuses in the world. One is IIT Bombay campus. The other is Kuvempu University campus. Thick forest. Even now leopards walk around, and particularly in IIT, in first floor houses also, into the balcony, the leopards come. Very nice campus. So it's not just hello. It's not the campus alone. It is not just the academics alone. It is the people, different people who bring different thoughts, experiences, and perceptions, which we cannot experience. We at least understand. When I talk to somebody, I can talk and tell them how the tribals live. They may not be able to go to the tribal habitation and see for themselves.
Hard copy maintain.
Only when we share experiences, and many times when we share experience, we may not be able to share it in their language. We may have to do it in our language, and they must be able to understand. That's the reason why multilingualism enriches everybody's life. In turn, it enriches the life of others. Okay. For example, chutney, and the word chutney, word catamaran. These are Oxford English dictionaries now. Words in Oxford English dictionary. Biryani, kebab, all these are now part of many dictionaries. So slowly the vocabulary, and for example, after that Avatar movie, Avatar is now a word in English. And it's a beautiful word. Avatar tells you much more than what we would have told in English, different forms. Is different from different avatars. So every language has a very good word for a very interesting thing. And it's not necessary that the other languages have it. We can come to that. For example, it's not necessary that our own language has the best expression for human thought. For example, a word like prayashchit. There is no equivalent word in English for this. Regret, introspection, so many related words you get, but you don't get the essence of this word in English. You may have to write one big sentence or even a paragraph just to explain this word. The same is like avatar. One word in avatar will clarify. I'm sure there are such words in English for which we don't have good expressions. So, human thoughts and emotions transcend language barriers and needs to be bridged. Multiculturalism through multilingualism. Only when we understand others' speech, others' voice, we may be able to understand their perception, life, and other things. And it has happened. For example, two interesting examples. You look at this. You will see that all railway stations in India will write at least in 3 languages. The local language, Hindi or Devanagari version, and the anglicized version. Whereas here, this is in English, this is in Mandarin, this is in Tamil, this is in the local language, this is in Malaysia. Even more interesting example, look at this. When Chandragupta Maurya married Helena, who was daughter or sister of Seleucus, how did they communicate? They didn't have a common language. They would have had to learn, no doubt. They would have learned because they have to survive. So their actual relationship can only be expressed after each learns the other language. But human expressions is not limited by language. There are many people who are deaf and dumb, who live well, who have very rich expressions. If only they had a voice, they might have been able to tell what they feel, and maybe we understand how much. That's why you'll see many of the famous artists are either blind or deaf. So the loss of one faculty enriches the power of other faculty. And even interesting thing is in Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh, this is Besnagar pillar inscription. Location is Vidisha. Date is 2nd century, so 200 AD. Language is Central Western Epigraphy, Prakrit, with a few Sanskritized. So Prakrit writing with few Sanskritized spellings. Script is Brahmi script of the Shunga period. It was issued by the Greek ambassador Heliodorus, who came here and converted to Vaishnavism. Okay, he was ambassador to Shunga Empire, but he was from what is today Bactria, the northwestern part of Afghanistan. He came here. In fact, we went to this place last year. And so it was a epigraphic Prakrit script with Sanskritized spellings using Brahmi script. Okay, so it's been there for 2,500 years, well documented evidence to show that people had to be multilingual. So we'll see what is the advantage and disadvantage. What is the advantage of multilingualism? Ability to understand and interact with different knowledge systems. That's very important. If you want to know what is good with us, you also need to know what is good with others. If others have something better than us, we should be able to adapt that. How can we adapt and improve ourselves? Only when we know what is wrong with us. How do we know what is wrong with us? Only we know what is right with others. What is wrong with others, we can clearly see. But what is right with others is very difficult to see. But very interesting, when Nelson Mandela became the first president of South Africa, he was in jail for 29 years by the white man. Then there was this Western parliamentary democracy system where people elected and he became the president. And after he took over as president, he made a very interesting remark. He said, this is a very stupid system of governance. Even as a child, we had better governance in the African communities. It was called a community of elders, like old Panchayat of India. All elders would be part of the governance. And what is interesting in Africa, which had better democracy than us, much better democracy than the Roman democracy, which we practice today, that in the group of elders, when they were discussing common issues about governance and law in the society, which is their village or panchayat, they would also allow children to participate. And children also had a voice. After all the discussion, any child could raise a doubt. And many times, what children told would be implemented. This you see also in Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, the rule those days was, in any congregation of people for discussion, the youngest would be asked to speak first. Today, you have a college meeting, principal talks, after that 1 or 2 senior professors talk, finish. There is no voice for young faculty. There, since Sahadeva was the youngest, Sahadeva was asked to make the first remark. Only when all the youngsters were made to speak, then slowly the elders and finally the eldest of the lot would make the final statement. Today in a meeting, there is no democracy. And even worse, when the principal is there, the HOD is there, if somebody from management comes, even the principal keeps quiet. Even if it is wrong, things are accepted. So Nelson Mandela laughed. He said, we had much better democracy. We have a stupid democracy now by asking people to vote, and then anybody crosses the 50% mark gets it. Okay. So we must know other knowledge systems. Only then we will be able to improve. Otherwise, we are closed, and we will, whenever in a closed system, whatever we do, it appears right. Like your family politics that is happening both in Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, everywhere. Okay. Social, cultural, and economic benefits of multilingualism. Suppose I am able to talk to somebody in another language, that fellow will first try to interact with me rather than interact with somebody who doesn't know his language. That's why linking language, universal language, global languages have become very. Why is English so important? English is one of the world's worst language. Why is English so important now? English is important because it is the language of knowledge and economy. Even now, today morning also somebody was overhearing somebody in the mobile phone. That fellow was saying, I told my son, he was in some rural village school. I told him, somehow learn some English, you will get a job. Why is this fellow so interested in that fellow learning English? So there are social, cultural, and economic benefits. Minor meetings are going on. Is this how you are as academicians?
Madhushri madam, please mute it.
Madhushri madam. Enhancing some expressions in our own language. As I said, we may be able to find a better word for what we want to mean, and that word may not be in our language. Okay. Health and opportunity is proven to improve because when we talk different languages, our facial muscles move in different way. Speaking in the only one language, certain muscles, facial expressions are never triggered. Truth can be better discerned in the original language. If you really want to know the truth or close to the truth, closer rather than the truth, you must always read in the original language. For example, my PhD guide, we were doing some research, all that, but he is a very peculiar person because he wanted to read the original article in the original language written by the author. He learned German and French, even though he is mostly English. He learned German and French so that he can read the original work written by the author in that parent language, so that he says, okay, then I will understand what that scientist was thinking when he wrote this, rather than an English translation. That's why one of the unfortunate things is a large amount of Indian knowledge system is now available only in Sanskrit, and not able to know Sanskrit has become a barrier to value it. And because people find it difficult to learn Sanskrit and make sense with it, they have started denouncing, like Macaulay. Macaulay said English is much better than Sanskrit. now all over the world, people know Sanskrit is 100 times better than any language on earth. I'll come to that little later. Okay. What is the negative part? What is the disadvantage of multilingualism? Effort spent on multiple languages may not yield benefit. You have to make a lot of effort to learn other languages. And it's more expensive and no cumulative benefit if not consistently used. So I spent 2 years time trying to learn German when I was in class 11 and 12. But there were 20 years gap, 25 years gap before I went to Germany. No use. For 25 years, I could not use the language. Slowly, whatever effort I had put to write exam, clear the certificate and junior diploma is waste. Of course, I can read the boards now, German boards, but I cannot speak. And if they speak very quickly, I cannot follow. Okay. So unless you use it consistently, no use. And at what cost? Do you want to master one subject, one language, or do you want to learn more languages? This is another question. Suppose I spend more time on a single language, I may become a scholar. Do you want to be a scholar in one language or a utilitarian in multiple languages? That is a choice people have. And unfortunately, today's online translation make it redundant to learn other languages. This is the other problem of artificial intelligence. Today, it has reached such a level, you can get translation of one language to another. Now they have already covered about 30 major languages in the world. That's why when you look at Google, it will give you, do you want the email to be read in English, printed, shown in English, Kannada, Bengali, Tamil, everything. Not very accurate, but it's getting more accurate with artificial intelligence. So in another 5 years, you will have a mobile phone where you can talk in any language and set any other language where the person to whom you are talking will listen. He can talk in any language of his choice, but you can listen in your mother tongue, which means nobody needs to learn other languages. This is the problem. This is exactly the problem of high technology. Home and abroad, there are a lot of medical advantage. For example, there is a news article in Deccan Herald. Bilinguals cuts dementia prevalence. Numerous scholarly articles, well researched from Europe and USA, they all conclude bilingualism, means at least two in speech, allows for better cognition and lower incidence and degree of dementia. And dementia is the biggest problem in Europe and America, particularly America. It is indeed a serious problem, as America and to a lesser extent Europe is monolingual, particularly US. Very little Spanish is spoken in southern part, but entire thing is English, and that's why America has the world's largest people under dementia. And it's happening at other places also. So even for health and wealth reasons, knowing more than one language or being multilingual is a bonus. Now let's get back to language issue. How did these languages evolve? Is there any difference between spoken and written form of the language? Is there one source for all languages? Specific to India, what can we say? Have other knowledge systems faced such issues? How did they solve? Some answers. Languages have been part of human evolution, quite recent on time scale. So, the languages that we use today, the oldest of them is about 3,000 to 4,000 years back. Very recent, because human evolution is about at least well recorded about 2 million years. We have very good evidence of people even about 1.5 million up to 2 million years in India. And we have a lot of other archaeological evidences today, DNA evidences, to show the modern human is 2 lakh years old. When we say modern human, ours. The other sapiens and the pre-sapiens, they are about 2 million years old. So even more recent is writing. The most recent writing you will see is about 2.5, 3,000 years, not before that, which means people were talking before they started writing. And even today, when we evaluate reports and theses, all that, people talk well. People's writing is very bad. 99% of all teachers in India cannot write well. Writing is very difficult. Speaking is easy. Little more difficult is reading well. Writing well is very difficult. That's why whenever somebody writes well, it stays for a long time. That's why you have Nobel Prize for Literature. There is no Nobel Prize for Literature in oral form yet. Everything in written form. Writing is one of the most important evolutionary activity. We also need to understand different phases of human evolution to understand this difference between speaking and writing. So let us go back in time and see what it is. This is how it is. There are both language evolution and some language revolution, and it has happened. Okay. Homo sapiens are the most recent. We are all Homo sapiens. We came out of Africa 2 lakh years back. Before that, there were Homo neanderthal, Homo erectus, all of whom have become extinct now. Okay. The Homo sapiens came out of Africa 2 lakh years back, and they reached India about 70,000 years back. And they reached America only 10 to 15,000 years back. In fact, in South America, they reached only about 8,000 years back. Here in Greenland, they reached about 4,500 years back. Okay. So if you look at time scale, you will say 500,000 years back, the brain was like this. Homo erectus had a brain like this, which was 1 million years back. Homo habilis had 2 million years back, the brain was like this. This was the earliest form of. So the y-axis is interesting. It is volume of the brain, 500 cc, 1000 cc, 1500. So one of the reasons the languages developed is because the brain volume increased. In fact, very interesting language anecdotes are there. I'm sure it is there in other languages also. We keep saying in Kannada, I will mention it in Kannada, I'll tell the equivalent in English so that others understand, but I'm sure in all other languages, something similar will be there because it's part of human experience. We keep saying, oh, tumba budwanta, taptale avanu. We keep saying somebody is very intelligent because his head is very big. Okay, what they're indirectly telling is brilliance and complexity is related to volume of the brain. Okay, and you will see the language diversity, which is also the diversity of human migration. You will see here, see Africa and Asia, tremendous amount of language diversity, even Southeast Asia. Very less in South America, very less in North America, Canada and other places, very less. So this language diversity clearly indicates culturally the richest culture are in Africa and Asia, not in America, much less in Europe. So what happened from early brain to modern brain is this. Changes associated with human self-domestication, evolutionary stages for languages. People were all migratory. People were living in small quarters. Then there was a collection of people. Then the habitation on a large scale. When you have more people staying at the same place, people start interacting. When you are migratory, you don't bother. When you are traveling alone, you have nobody to talk to. So, grammar features, single word, two slot this thing, then some transitive stage came, serial verb, accusative, aggrative, highly syntactic. So, about 10,000 years back, a very complex form of languages brain could handle. That is when languages developed. Okay. You had less complex languages, but as the brain evolved, the volume increased, it could handle more complex languages. So more and more refinement, changes in brain and cognition, increased social complexity, increased juvenile period, increased parenting behavior, teaching through input enhancement. For example, what happens to animals? Animal is born, within 3 or 4 weeks, the baby is independent. If it knows how to survive, it will grow up to become an adult. Otherwise, it will die. That's why in Africa or even in India, if you go to the forest, you will see that tigers, lions, all the predators, wild dogs, hyenas, they pick the weakest and the youngest animal, particularly newborns, because they are unable to escape. They are unable to move fast. They cannot anticipate. They are not trained to find or escape a predator. Always the weakest animal is caught. That doesn't happen to humans because human babies are kept for 10 to 12 years with the parents. Increased parenting behavior, teaching through input enhancement, languages, reading, writing is all taught by parents before it goes to kindergarten. Kindergarten, some alphabets and other things are taught. But basic speaking and understanding words is at home. By 2.5 years, children recognize words and they are able to talk back. Almost 70% of the vocabulary that they will use when they are adults is taught in the first 3 years. Okay. So, physiological and behavioral changes has resulted in more complex languages being used. Just look at this example of English. The earliest form of English is what is called the Celtic, this thing, around 200 BC. Now, after the Romans came, Romans imposed a Latin version of the English. Then in Europe, Germans dominated. They imposed the Anglo-Saxon version. Then Viking invasion, the Old Norse, Norman invasion, Anglo-Norman and Old French. Then in Renaissance, lot of mixing happened. French, Latin, Greek and Italian mixed up. Then from 17th century, since the British Empire was colonial, they had inputs from Hindi, Persian, Arabic, Turkish, Malay and American English. Today you see the what is called the modern English. Okay. So all this you can see Old English, Middle English, early modern English made famous by Shakespeare, and late modern English and present what you see. Okay. Now can we map some of these issues? What influence Greek had on languages? What about Romans? What have Persians done on the languages? What about Sanskrit? What about Dravidian languages like Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada and Telugu? What about numerous languages that have no script like Kodava, Konkani, Sanketi? For example, India has almost 600 languages which have no script. They only talk. You can go to the tribal areas in Bastar and Chhattisgarh. Almost every district will have its own dialect, but no script. Now, our language is imposed. For example, we saw it here. Whosoever was the ruling class on the old Celtic English, Romans imposed the Latin version because Romans' main language was Latin. And then eventually, Renaissance period, lot of mixture. French words, Greek words, Italian words, everything came up. And today, now, for example, as I said, chutney, catamaran, avatar, all these are part of English. How is governance connected with language? The ruling class. Do they decide what everybody should follow? We will see that. For example, court language was Persian for 700 years in India. As soon as the Tughlaq dynasty came, they imposed Persian as the court language. Even in 1785, court language in Mysore kingdom was Persian. That's what Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan did. Till then, the court language was Kannada. They changed it to Persian. Okay. English was the court and administrative language from 1825 till 1947, and it continues. Today, the court language is still English and the administrative language is still English, even though local governance imposes Kannada here and Marathi in Maharashtra, all that. But much of the major court and administrative matters are in English. Further, in Pondicherry, Diu, Daman, they had French, and Goa had Portuguese till 1954. In fact, China is facing a more serious problem because suddenly China is a world's second largest economy with a very large industrial base, modern technology, but they have no English base. Whereas India had an English base for 150 years. Even today, the most profitable job in China is to become an English tuition master. You are paid very heavily if you are an English tuition master in China because they want to catch up with the technology, but entire modern technology and knowledge is in English and they have no English base. So this is the only accidentally good thing Britishers did. They left the English base here. Of course, we are not building on that. We have misused it. We have abused it. We have wrongly used it. We have not built on that. But nevertheless, there is an English base. That's the reason why I am talking to you on the internet today. So, we also asked a question whether all languages are connected. It appears about 4,500 years BC, which is 6,000 years back. There was what is called the Proto-Indo-European language, early language, from which Celtic came, from which English came finally, Anatolian, Indo-Iranian language. And then it split to Indo-Aryan language and Iranian language. And also this part is the Balto-Slavic language. Whereas this side, Albanian, Armenian, Hellenic, Italic. So in Europe, Italian and German are the major roots for that. Whereas here we have the Indo-Iranian and surprisingly the North Europe, Baltic states, they have a close connection with Indo-Iranian language. Okay, particularly the Indo-Aryan language started with Vedic Sanskrit. It split to classical Sanskrit and Prakrit. From Prakrit, Marathi and Sinhala came. This version went to Magadhi, from where Bengali, Bhojpuri and Odia came. The Central Indic came to Punjabi, Nepali, Sindhi and Gujarati. Further, it came to Hindustani and Hindi and Urdu. Hindi and Urdu are very new languages. 500-600 years back. So Hindi is a new language, and there are many other languages which precede that. And now these are all the modern languages: Spanish, Portuguese, French, English, Dutch, German, Hindu, all these, Russian, Kurdish. Okay. Now the question is, there is no mention of South Indian languages. This is a problem with North Indians. First thing, they don't know Hindi is a new language, and they don't even want to value that there are other languages far richer and far older than Hindi. This is it. You see, the word two, okay, in Sanskrit, dvi, don in Marathi, dui in Bengal and Odia, do in Hindi, Urdu, deka in Sinhala. Similarly, dvai, dio, finally English two, twi, tri, twa, to all this. So, starting from the Proto-Indo-European languages, most of the other languages have evolved. The question is, which is closest to this today? This is it. You can see here. In Sanskrit, you say dvi, Serbian dva, English two, Sanskrit three, tri, Serbian tri, English three. Very close. So many words. Where people using multiple languages, this is the first evidence of bilingual writing. It might have been earlier there, but the record we get is from 2270 BC in Persia. You can see this stone inscription. You can see different scripts. So this is the same information in two different languages. And in that period, the pre-Persian Empire, Sumerian Empire, was bountiful. Rich trade from Mediterranean to India and China, the Silk Route, all that. So you had hundreds and thousands of people crisscrossing, bringing money and material. So they definitely would have had to communicate at least in more than one language. And this is evidence of two languages. And very interesting. King Xerxes in Eastern Turkey then, during 516 to 485 BC, which is approximately 3000 years back, is written in Old Persian, Elamite, and Akkadian language, three different languages, but using the same script. This is on a high cliff. Today you can see this is the portion expanded. Script is the same, which means what you see today. There are innumerable languages. We have about 600 languages in India, and only about 22 have script. So even historically, people would talk and not bother about writing. When it came to writing, very limited. So all the three language information is in the same script. So writing three different languages in three different script came much later. So script evolved very late. For example, here, discovered in 1799, this is a village called Rosetta in Egypt, where multilingualism was a necessity in strong economic culture. For example, this on this stone, there are same information written in three different scripts. One written in ancient Greek, the same information written in a different script, which is called Demotic, which is the same script which Jesus Christ used to use. And the third one was hieroglyphics, which is the ancient Egyptian language. So this is somewhere near Alexandria, and Alexandria was the world's most economic city. And you had people from all cultures there. The local culture was Demotic. The ruling class was Greek, the local population was, and the ruling class were Egyptian hieroglyphics. So they would always write all their information in 3 languages, like what you see in railway stations now. Okay, board in 3 languages. He is a person who deciphered. He had some knowledge of the Demotic language. He could get experts, if not you, I think he was an expert in ancient Greek. He learned Demotic language, which was easy. Based on these two, since information in these two is same as this, he was able to decipher the hieroglyphics. Okay, sometime in 1810, 1820. This stone is in Paris Museum now, or British Museum now. What is interesting is one of the world's oldest script, which is the Indus script, till today is not deciphered. One doesn't know whether it is a scripting language like this or a symbol language like this. That we don't know, even though there are a lot of debates. So look at this, 2nd century, 200 AD, Athens. People had started reading and writing. They had a library. Library was open from sunrise to noon. And what this is written in Latin, but Greek sentence is, no book is to be taken out. You have to give a oath and say, when you go to the library, you will not take the book out. And the books perhaps were in manuscripts of some kind. This is the statement. How the language spread is this. Look at the ancient Silk Route, starting from Greece all the way to China, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, up to northern part of Australia. So Southern Europe, which is why the Renaissance happened there finally, Eastern Africa, Central Asia, West Asia, Middle East, India, China, this very rich. That's exactly the reason why we were multicultural. Everybody would come to our coast, and there would be trade, interior trade. For example, there was a land trade from here to here. This is the Kavaripatnam, this is Muziris. This is Bharuch, one of the world's most important port, what you call Bharuch today. And you can see here, so many land routes connecting to the Silk Route, which would go to China finally. And so people had to transact. You had languages everywhere. Everybody had a local language. They need people to talk to the neighbor. Eventually, all these got consolidated. Multiple languages developed. For example, look at on the other side of Hindu Kush mountain in Afghanistan during Kushan period, in Greek language, in 133 AD, there is this written on the inscription. So something is inscribed here, mentions Hindu god Mahasena. This is here. This is the Hindu Kush pass, which all the conquerors came. This is the Rabatak. It cites Indian cities and Hinduism done in this period. It mentions the word Saketa, which was another name for Ayodhya. It explicitly mentions Patliputra. It mentions Sri Kampa, Kausambi. And in fact, this was one of the evidences, this stone inscription was one of the evidences presented in the famous Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi case. Okay. Now, since Sanskrit is so central to Indian knowledge system, where 90% of what we know as Indian knowledge system is written and documented in Sanskrit, it's interesting to see where Sanskrit originated. It's most likely originated, this is still hypothesis, a lot of research is going on, in a kingdom called Mitanni, which is on the southern part of the Caspian Sea. Okay. This you will see now, Aleppo city, which was bombarded by ISIS. It is still there. Assur Banipal, the famous emperor in Middle East, Assyria, all this. So this place probably is where Sanskrit originated, and from Vedic Sanskrit that it started, so-called Aryans, whatever you call, it split to literature Sanskrit and Prakrit. From Prakrit, so many North Indian languages started, including Hindustani, from which Hindu came, and then Haryani, all this, right? Nepali, Marwadi, Gujarati, all this, right? Dogri, Maharashtrian, Konkani. From Prakrit, Pali came and no branches further. From Prakrit, Gandhari came, stopped there, no other thing. Whereas Magadhi went into many other things, Odia, Bengali, Assami, all this, Mithali, Bhojpuri, which is now the state language of Bihar, okay? So there is some conflict between purity of oral and written traditions, and he's a world-renowned Indologist from Harvard University. What he says is, the Vedic texts were orally composed and transmitted without the use of script in an unbroken line of transmission from teacher to student that was formalized early on. This ensured an impeccable textual transmission superior to the classical texts of other cultures. It is, in fact, something like a tape recording of 1500 to 500 BC, not just the actual words, but even the long lost musical accent, as in old Greek or Japanese, has been preserved to the present. That's why all the mantras are in Sanskrit. On the other hand, the Vedas have been written down only during the early second millennium current era, while some sections such as collection of the Upanishads were perhaps written down at the middle of the first millennium, while some early unsuccessful attempts indicated by certain Smriti rules for forbidding to write down the Vedas may have been made around the end of the first millennium BC. You will see that. You will see that a lot of rock edicts by Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka, all over Indian subcontinent, even all the way to Afghanistan and all the way here in south. These are two places interesting in Karnataka. This is Maski and this is Brahmagiri. We visited that last year. And on this script, of course, his name is there, all that. And this script is Brahmi script. Okay. And Maski is near Raichur. And you can see here, the fourth column, 1, 2, 3, 4, is Phoenician script, whereas the fifth column is Brahmi script. The Phoenician script is West Asia, what is today little north of Israel. You can see here the variations of this. Slowly the Brahmi script, and today the modern Devanagari script. This is English. This is ancient Roman. This is ancient Greek. This is Phoenician. This is Brahmi script. Slowly the Brahmi script evolved to become today like what you see in Devanagari. Okay. So Devanagari script developed around 10th to 11th century and Hindi only in 14th century. So you can see here the Indo-European languages origin we don't know. We may have a Proto-Indo-European language. It's split to two branches, Indo-Iranian and European. And from there it split to many forms today, finally English here. Okay. This branch split to Indic, from there East Zone, West Zone, all Bengali, Hindi, everything, Punjab, Sindhi, Persian, everything. This is the language tree. Proto-Indo-European languages, Centum languages and Satem languages breaking. Then all this, from Sanskrit all this came. small relationship between them, quite a lot. Here, much less. These blue ones are all interconnected. These all are interconnected. So names of writing script used by 22 scheduled languages in India. Telugu script, Kannada script, Konkani uses Devanagari, Tamil, Malayalam script, Bengali uses Eastern Nagari, Urdu, Sanskrit script, all these Northeast languages. Then Mithali, Devanagari is used here, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Sindhi, so many things, Punjabi, Dogri, all that, okay? Now, what is interesting is, where do these Dravidian languages come? They have no connection. They don't seem to have any connection there. For example, the Dravidian languages, Tamil, Malayalam, Tulu, Kodava, Kannada, Telugu, Gadaba, Kui, Praji, Gondi, Kolami, Kuru, Malto, and very interesting. On the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, there is a district where people speak and use a language called Brahui, which is very close to Tamil or Dravidian language. It appears that West and Central Asia people, in fact, there is a lot of genetic, this is how language anthropology is done, genetic mapping and other things of language and this thing. So there is a new theory which says, even before Proto-Indo-European language, there was a Proto-Dravidian language 8,000 years back. They came to Indus Valley civilization, and 4,000 years back, they migrated to South India. And in fact, today it's become slightly cultural, political issue where Tamil Nadu people say that they are the original Indus Valley civilization, they are the original people of India, etc., all that. So definitely, Dravidian language is like this. You had a Proto-Dravidian language which split to North Dravidian, Central and South, that further south, and after that, Proto-South Indian Dravidian one split to Tamil, Malayalam, Irula, Kodga, Kurmo, Toda, Koda, all this, Kannada, Tulu, Korga, then second part, Telugu, Gondi, all this. In fact, these are much closer to Telugu. Okay. Okay. Then many more. Now, North Indian, this thing, 26 versions of Proto-Dravidian into different classes over years. So the Brahui is related to Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, all that, right? So, of course, now it has led to more fight. 220 million people speak Dravidian languages. So you had a Proto-Dravidian, it split to all this. Then Tamil, Kannada came. From their origin, what is modern Tamil and Toda, Koda, all this, Kannada, Kodagu Bhashi. Kodagu doesn't have script. It uses Kannada script. Okay. So you have mature and refined the language models now. Finite language, regular, deterministic, non-deterministic, context-free languages, plenty of the context-sensitive languages, alphabet, all this. So these are language models used in computers and linguistics to check which is close to which is derived from which, all that. Today, what's happening, as I mentioned, is this. There's machine learning, what one calls neural transfer learning, large language models. What it does is the following. Suppose you build a translator from Hindi to English. You build another translator from English to Marathi. You can take this part here, you speak or write in Hindi, it will output in Marathi. This is what is happening. So, online language translation, including now voice and script. Voice is much better, script is improving. So this is what is happening. What you see in ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence, this thing is this. Okay. So some observation, 3-language formula is very useful. It would be interesting to have the first language as mother tongue, which could be either Devanagari or Dravidian, depending on whether you are in North India or South India. The second language will be interesting to have English, simply because it's an economic language and we need to make it compulsory. The third language can be reverse of the mother tongue. That is, somebody whose mother tongue is Dravidian can have a third language as Devanagari, and somebody whose mother tongue is Devanagari should learn a third language, Dravidian. This is the problem with North Indian CBSE, ICSE education, where they want us to learn Hindi, but they don't want to learn any South Indian language. So I think government should do well to make this a rule. First language, mother tongue, whether Dravidian or Devanagari. Third language, reverse. Second language, English compulsory. Then people will be able to live meaningfully. Now you find lot of North Indians coming and working in Bangalore. What do these local people do? They talk to them in Kannada. And when they can't respond, they say, get out. Why do you want to come here and spoil our... This is what is happening everywhere. This happened in Bombay about 30 years back. This happened in other places. And every place they are doing this. Government is responsible for this nonsense. They should say, irrespective of the education system, 3-language formula like this. Of course, Tamil Nadu will say, we will not learn any Devanagari script. Yeah, let them learn some other language. Some other language in North India. Maybe they can learn Gujarati if they want. But education should make people within the country talk to each other fairly well. That's very important. And they must also know all the knowledge and the technology in the world. For that, you need English. If this simple thing cannot be done, and you say everybody in South should learn Hindi and nobody in North should learn Dravidian, this problem will always be there. Okay. If people want a fourth language, there's an interesting suggestion. The fourth language can be Spanish, because the next economic zone in the world where a lot of job opportunities will come is South America, which is predominantly Spanish. Russian is interesting because Russia is the world's largest country with one of the lowest population, and that population is declining further thanks to the Ukraine war, plus their own replacement rate. So a lot of people can go and live in Russia if they know Russian. Again, Japan has a very large declining population, or you can take up any Slavic language, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all that, where very good life is there, very high quality life, but this is it. So instead of learning something else, this one of this fourth language will help people. After all, Indians want to live well, they want to migrate, they want to go there, make money, whatever. So this is quite useful to do. Okay. The conclusion is, more the language, better. For example, in your youth, when you learn more than one language, cognition is better, life skills is better, and your test scores are better. In adulthood, you can succeed in college, you will get higher earnings, employability is increased, and at maturity, when you get old, you have a healthier brain, you have better recovery, therefore you will live long. So the mantra is learn more languages, encourage people to learn more languages, encourage people to learn diverse languages, one Dravidian, one Devanagari, one English and one other something like that. And I have some wonderful experience. I have a niece who was born in Calcutta. Her father was my uncle whose mother tongue was Kannada. Her mother was Marathi, mother tongue Marathi. They were living in Calcutta. So the children learned Marathi, mother tongue, Kannada, father mother tongue, Bengali because they were in Calcutta, Hindi because it was a national language, English because it is a universal language. They are so good in 5 languages. And they learnt all the 5 languages by the time they were 6 or 8 years. And they are so fluent now. They have one of the world's largest set of friends. And they live very well, even though now they live, one of them lives in a village, the other lives in England now. But amazing. So please encourage this and do your bit. Now I will stop. If there are any questions, we have 10 minutes time.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
I'm Chaitra here. I felt good about your presentation because I can speak 6 different languages.
Ah.
And listening to your class, I felt proud about myself. Thank you for all that.
Where are you teaching? What do you teach?
Sir, I teach political science at Government Women's College in Kolar. I'm basically a Mangalorean. So mother tongue is Tulu and all other languages from Bangalore I've picked up.
Which college you teach?
Sir, I teach in Government College for Women in Kolar.
Kolar, Kolar, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
ಸರ್ ನಮಸ್ತೆ.
ಹೇಳಿ.
ತಾವ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ತ್ರಿಭಾಷಾ ಸೂತ್ರನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಬಳಕೆಗೆ ತರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು, ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ದ್ರಾವಿಡ ಭಾಷೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಬಳಕೆಗೆ ತರುವಂತದ್ದು. ಅದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಚಲಿತವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳು ಆದ್ಯತೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತಗೊಬಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್.
ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಭಾಷೆನೇ ಒಂದು ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಇದಾಗೋಗಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗಾರ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತಾ?
ಎಲ್ಲದ್ರಲ್ಲೂ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸೂತ್ರ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು ಸರ್. ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ
we teachers should encourage this.
ಈಗ ನ್ಯೂ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಯಂಗ್ಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ, ಯೂತ್ಗೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದೊಂದು ಅನುಕೂಲ ಸರ್. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನು ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೆ, ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಎಕಾನಮಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜ್ಞಾಪಿಸಿ ನೆನಪಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಿ. ಅದು ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ ಎಕಾನಮಿಕ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದೆರಡು ಲೈನ್ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ಏನಂತ.
ಈಗ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, 120 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ದೇ ಡಿಸ್ಕವರ್ಡ್ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ ಇನ್ ಮಿಡ್ಲ್ ಈಸ್ಟ್. ಸಡನ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ಆಗಿನ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರೂ ಸೌದಿ ಅರೇಬಿಯಾಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಕೆಲವ್ರು ಮಾತ್ರ ಹಜ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗೋರು, ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗೋರು. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ನೋಬಡಿ ವಾಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಮಿಡ್ಲ್ ಈಸ್ಟ್. ಯಾವಾಗ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ ಹುಡುಕಿದ್ರು, ದೆನ್ ಆಲ್ ದ attention went there, and today Saudi Arabia, Qatar are some of the most important nations politically, not because they are in any way good, because they have petroleum under their control. They can dictate terms. Same thing will happen after a few years with lithium. ಯಾರು ಲಿಥಿಯಂ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರೇ ಜಬರ್ದಸ್ತ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್. ಮುಂಚೆ ಯಾರ ಹತ್ರ ಐರನ್ ಓರ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅವರು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು ಅವರು, ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ. ಈಗ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ವಾಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಲೋಲಿ ಶಿಫ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಅವೇ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಯಂ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಬಂದಿರೋದು. ಸೊ ಯು ಕಾಂಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಪೀಪಲ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮನಿ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಇನ್ ಸೌದಿ ಅರೇಬಿಯಾ 90% of the wealth is controlled by a small family of 5,000 people, royal family and its immediate cousins, whereas 95% of the population is not well off. So, and they dictate terms. Now they are fighting war with Iran, now they want to fight war with others because they have money. How did the money come? Money came because of petroleum. 100 years back, they had no transport. Even 100 years back, people used to walk around in camel there. Today, they go in helicopters. So this is petroleum economy. Just one item. Same happens in Ukraine. Ukraine used to be the world's largest exporter of wheat. That has changed now. That is why our atta now is 60 rupees. 32 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇತ್ತು 1 kg ಗೋಧಿ ಹಿಟ್ಟು, ಈಗ 60 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಆಗಿದೆ, mainly because of Ukraine and Russia. So this is how resources control the world economy. ಇನ್ನೇನಾರು ಇದೆಯಾ ಕೇಳೋದು?
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್. ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ.
ಇವತ್ತಿನ ವಿಷಯ ಆದಂತಹ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಪದ್ಧತಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಹುಭಾಷಿಕತೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ಕುರಿತು ಅತಿ ಸುದೀರ್ಘವಾಗಿ, ಚರ್ಚಾತ್ಮಕವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಹು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ವಿಚಾರಧಾರೆಗಳನ್ನ ಮಂಡಿಸಿದಂತಹ ಆನಂದರಾವ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮೈಸೂರು HRDC ಮೈಸೂರು ಅವರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲ ಶಿವರಾತ್ರಿಗಳ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕ ನಮನಗಳನ್ನ ಈ ಮೂಲಕ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೋ ಮಚ್ ಸರ್.
Yeah, again, thank you all of you for patiently listening. We had some trouble with connections and other things. People talk a lot of online learning. You know how painful and how difficult it is. Lucky, today I was in Mysore. My home is very close to university. So when the connection failed, I could come by scooter, come to the HRDC center and do this now. But now you know online education is not very good. You must always have offline education, directly teachers in the class, one-on-one. Well, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.